Hi there, I'm Richard Hill, the host of eComOne, and welcome to episode 184. Now, in this episode, I speak with Steve Toth. From agency to in-house at firms like FreshBooks to now running SEO Notebook, Steve is a guy that I actually pay to help our agency when it comes to innovative ideas to propel our own agency clients. I first met Steve at Chiang Mai SEO last year, and we stayed in touch. And in this episode, we chat all things SEO and ecom. Steve steps us through the latest Google update, what it means for stores. Great news if you've been following our SEO recipe framework. Now, when you hit that plateau in SEO, what should you do next? Steve steps us through some cracking, innovative ideas around that. Now, using AI to automate SEO strategies, some very innovative ways to steal what's working in the indexed, already using the top 20 listings and the PAAs. We chat through zero volume keywords and, of course, so much more in this one. Now, if you enjoy this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic episode. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Richard. How are you
Great
doing?
Stuff. Well, I'm really good, actually. Yeah, really good. Busy day in the office, which is how I like it. On countdown, as we were just discussing before we hit record. We're both on countdown to a nice trip. When this episode goes live, I think we'll both be in the amazing Saigon in Vietnam, which will be pretty cool.
Yeah, okay, see you there.
Yeah, I think, in fact, this episode will go live on the Tuesday of that week. So I think it'll be the day before the conference starts. So that'll be amazing. So I think best thing to start with would be to introduce yourself, Steve, and how you got into the world of SEO, e-commerce, and sort of online marketing.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing SEO since 2010, back when it was, just a matter of getting 7% keyword density into the page and seeing those instant results. So, thankfully the results were nice and fast then, and it piqued my interest and got me excited about, learning more about SEO. And then I parlayed that into an agency job where I worked at agency for 6 years, managing all types of clients under the sun and 180 accounts at once. So that gave quite a trial by fire in terms of client management and stuff like that. And then got the job at FreshBooks in 2018, where I was the SEO manager there. We did really well and grew traffic to 50,000 clicks a day and ranked number one for some pretty massive keywords like invoice template. And while I was at FreshBooks, I started my newsletter, SEO Notebook, in 2019. The idea behind that newsletter is basically one actionable piece of strategy that you can try the same day that'll have a big impact on your business. So that's been now a project that's going into its 5th year, which is kind of unbelievable. And I've been very fortunate to be able to be a SEO consultant working for myself since 2020, shortly after I started SEO Notebook.
So I think you've literally listed like the sort of all the sort of sides of a successful SEO, where you've worked in an agency, sort of started back in the golden days where you'd stick a couple of alt tags on and a bit of metadata, and bang, you're on page one in about 4 hours. The heydays. The exact match domain names and a bit of metadata sort of thing. And then obviously managing 180 accounts. Jesus, that's a crazy amount of accounts, isn't it?
Yeah,
Shit.
It was a lot of jump into the meeting, make 2 or 3 recommendations, hope the team actually makes those changes and just move on to the next one. That role did teach me a lot about, client management and, essentially how to communicate and how important that really is. So, I'm still thankful for that opportunity to have such a large breadth of clients. And, one thing I loved about that job was just learning about all the different industries. Like it was, you can imagine you have 180 accounts, you've got so many interesting businesses you can learn about.
Yeah, I think my guys feel like they're under pressure when they've got about 12 accounts to manage. So that's quite interesting. And obviously moving to FreshBooks and working for a big corporate with, obviously hundreds of employees and building that, and then obviously setting up your own agency and what is now quite well known in the industry. And that's how I've sort of come to know you through SEO Notebook and through your sort of weekly, notes and your sort of quick tips. Which, if you're not signed up, guys, and you're listening now, I suggest you go and sign up, and we'll put some calls to action in the show notes and at the end as well. But the notes that you share, they are notes that we share and talk about most weeks, or the SEO team do within our business. Some fantastic notes, very actionable, which is what it comes down to, isn't it? There's a lot of things you can do in SEO, but ultimately some of them can be a little bit more complicated. But it's ultimately getting things done, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that, prior to starting SEO Notebook, I really didn't have like a good place to put all of my ideas. And a lot of those ideas just, got used, and then a new shiny object and kind of on to the next thing. And I think a lot of people are like that. But when I had the idea to essentially just first one day put everything in an Evernote where I had, one page for each sort of strategy or idea that I had, the next day I had the idea to kind of create, a notebook, and then each week email out one page of that notebook. And, I've been pretty fortunate with that idea catching on, and, and it's been great to also see a lot of SEO newsletters follow in my footsteps, and, also share tons of great knowledge, just the same as I'm doing.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. It's one, your emails are set on a forward to go into a Slack channel into our SEO team. So as soon as you publish that, they get pushed from my inbox into our account management Slack, so the guys can have a look at what's happening there. Obviously, they can sign up themselves as well. But yeah, I would definitely advise our listeners to sign up to SEO Notebook. Well, that's how we sort of obviously having a chat. And Steve's somebody I've used for consultancy and have worked with over a couple of 3 months ago. Yeah. So obviously lots happening as always in the SEO space and in the e-commerce space. Obviously, so I think when this episode airs, probably circa a month ago, some newer changes and updates, Google updates. Is there anything you think that our listeners specifically should be aware of around the recent updates?
Well, I mean, Google came down really hard on, trying to send some uncertainty, fear, and doubt around AI content. And I mean, I think that we should have had a little bit more common sense as an industry with the type of, I want to say abuse, but like the type of sort of taking too much advantage of just, launching thousands of pages via AI and not really, checking them and all that kind of stuff. And, I think that from Google's perspective, you have to think that the AI content is a threat on multiple levels, right? So one is just simply their crawl budget and having to now try to index or decide whether or not they're going to index, all this new content that's, sprouting up out of like it's never had before, right? So that's, one just key component of wasting Google's resources and reasons why they wouldn't want to do that. But I think the more important reason is that the quality of the search results are really threatened when people don't actually, have eyes on the content that they're releasing and all that kind of stuff, right? So like if you'd imagine that there's already disillusionment with Google, like you just go search like Google sucks or Reddit Google sucks, and you get like, tons and tons of threads of people completely disillusioned with their search results. Well, I mean, what greater threat is there going to be than just AI and just recycling all the same information constantly and not giving the search engine, anything new to surface? I think that's, where all this fear, uncertainty, and doubt is stemming from, because Google itself feels very threatened by the advent of AI content.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? If you're just, pushing the button, creating these thousands of pages and hundreds of thousands of words, and there's no, it's just churning what is already there without any real thought. It's obviously like doing back in the day when you're just trying to maybe build 1,000 links in a day. It's not really going to last, is it? It's not really doing things right. So yeah, it's inevitable. You've got to try and do things right on the AI side. But so what sort of sites have seen sort of penalties, or penalties is probably the wrong word, but what sites have been hit in the last month or so. I mean, there's quite a few rumors around sort of more around the PBNs and domain tactics. And what would your take be on that?
I know people personally who have lost hundreds of sites, and that is incredibly scary, right? Like that's probably like at least like half their portfolio, right? I mean, that's a huge portfolio to begin with, but that many sites. There was an interesting tweet by, I think I forget his last name, but his first name is I think Nate from Travel Lemming, and his site was dinged quite severely. And, he had a tweet and said, this is, he was penalized, but the point of his tweet was that there's this, really amazing AI site that took my place. And it's like, honestly, just if not worse than his site. Right. So I think, Google, in terms of like detecting AI content, I think, and I will be careful with what I say, I think the way that they did it initially, on this last update was to look for like certain footprints in, like an AI language model. I am an AI language model, like is the very basic one, but many others.
Now, you might be looking for an SEO boost, a down-to-earth digital PR campaign to share your story, or maybe just some straightforward technical help to amp up your performance. Now that's where eComNow comes in. A partner that's all about making things easier for your online store. Our services cover everything from creating professional content for your e-commerce categories to refining your product descriptions. Now, whether you're just starting out or have been in it for a while, we're here to deliver real, impactful results that add to your bottom line without unnecessary commitments. You can order one-off or multiple projects with a quick turnaround. Simply choose what you need.
They went after sort of like a very kind of calculated way of finding that. But I think on a larger scale, they're going to have more difficulty detecting AI content, other than for the content that doesn't leave those obvious footprints.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think if you're as an e-commerce store, I mean, what I'm seeing is, e-com stores usually and historically and mainly aren't doing a lot of probably some of the strategies that, say, affiliate marketers are doing. They've got a lot of products on there. If they're using AI to rewrite their product descriptions, their categories, but they're doing things, they're not just copy and pasting. E-com stores seem to have fared quite well, is what we're seeing. I just checked in before we hit record with the team this afternoon just to sort of check the rankings across the board, and we're seeing quite a lot of uplift.
I think there is on
e-com.
There is a place for AI content, no doubt. Like, like glossaries, for example, is a pretty good use case for that. And I think e-commerce, absolutely. Like, there's, you have to scale your content. There's no, getting a person to write thousands of product descriptions going to take way too long, and you're probably not going to do that. So I think it's just a matter of leveraging AI, like in an intelligent way, with sophisticated prompts that actually output into real natural language. And just, keeping a level of quality control on the content that you do produce. I think the thing that Google is most afraid of is the people who have zero quality control over their content and are just letting it, fly.
So I think a lot of people listening, I think your sort of writers that you may engage with at the moment, a lot more now. It's, a lot of writers are becoming sort of editors, I think, is what I'm seeing. They're doing a lot more, spending a lot more time editing and being able to produce a lot more, or maybe you're, repurposing team members that are utilizing AI, but they're not just, as we say, cut and shut or click and publish. They use the AI with more sophisticated prompts, but then also, obviously, there's a manual element. Not always, but ideally, depends on the site, doesn't it? I mean, you look at some of the sort of programmatic SEO where they're publishing 10,000. There was a talk at, I'm trying to think who it was now, when we were in Chiang Mai back in November. I think it was to do with tires and, publishing pages for all the different models of cars. Obviously, there's a lot of different models of cars and tires. And obviously, to publish content for every model of car around the tire, that's tens of thousands of models potentially. To sit and manually edit those, ideally, yes, but I think more and more staff are getting deployed. We're seeing to do a lot more editing on the AI, but we'll stay on the AI for a minute while we're there. So obviously, there's no denying you. I think you've got to embrace it. It's probably the best thing I would say. But in terms of e-com stores listing now, what are a couple of sort of specific things that e-com stores should be doing with AI? I know. For example, one of your notes, I'm thinking now, probably about 5 months ago, I might get this slightly wrong, but you were sort of using AI to look at the metadata, meta titles in the top 20 listings, and then taking that data and doing X. Have you got sort of a 2024 version of that?
Yeah. So that one is one of my favorite recent notes, and essentially what it teaches is that what we'll do is look at the title tags on the SERP. So we'll scrape those title tags, and we'll count the number of instances for each word in those title tags, and then we'll use the more popular words in our AI written title tags. So instead of just asking, Chat GPT API or whatever you're using, write me a title tag for like skis or something like that, it's actually Googling, kids skis like for 10-year-olds or something like that. Yeah. And then finding all the title tags and then using that information, those words, to write a new title tag. So the one thing that I also teach in that note is getting a unique angle for your title, essentially. So not just trying to replicate or mimic everything else that's in the top 10, but actually thinking about what are the unique sort of selling features that we can come up with. And AI does a great job at that. Like I think we showed the example of camping chairs, which would be like, perfect e-commerce type product, right? Yeah. And things like, ones with big pockets, or, ones for families, or, super compact or whatever.
Yeah. Ones with a one-in holder.
Yeah, exactly. For you, right?
Maybe
it'll be for us in Saigon. How about that?
Yeah.
But yeah, those various ways that we can kind of differentiate ourselves in our products and highlight those things in the SERP, because when they actually rank, you can get more clicks because you're differentiated, right? So that one's a good one. And another note that I really liked that was pretty recent was around Googling like a main keyword. So the keyword in this case, an e-commerce example, let's just say like camping again. And then what you do is you Google like that main keyword like camping, and then you delete the keyword in the search field, and you start typing words like what is, or how does, or when does, and the Google starts basically giving you questions related to camping, and because you're in that same session, and it's trying to basically speed up your research process. So that's a really great kind of tip to go deep in if you have the right set of keywords, because you'll just get like a really unlimited flow of amazing topics to kind of support your main e-commerce pages. So we've automated that with browser automation software, Selenium, and essentially we're able to give it a seed keyword, and then it cycles through all those question-based modifiers. And the results are amazing. Like the types of topics that we come up with, it's very hard to get those types of topics in keyword research tools. And
so is that pulling it from? So is that pulling it from the people or the PAA, or is pulling it from when Google's suggesting what the next?
From
the suggest.
So it's pulling it from the auto suggest, and we're getting amazing results with that.
Yeah. Okay, well, there's two great ones, guys, to have a look at, and obviously there's many more on SEO Notebook on a weekly basis. So obviously, having a little look around your history, you know, my researcher, Carrie Ann, who has been having a look at some of the things you've been working on, she's sort of saying to me that you managed to rank a 300,000 search keyword. But I assume that's is that maybe in the old role, was that in FreshBooks?
Two different ones. So actually, for two different companies. So one was at FreshBooks. That keyword was invoice template, and there's also 1,000,001 long tail keywords associated with invoice template, and that was quite a campaign. A lot of backlinks, a lot of on-page optimization. I was really inspired heavily by Kyle Roof's Rhinoplasty Plano ranking Latin content example. And we basically took a lot of the teachings from Kyle and put those into that campaign. So that was one. And then the other one was online signature and signature maker with a company called Signaturely, which I basically started as their SEO consultant from the very beginning. And that site has grown tremendously now. And
I've just bought that actually, literally Signaturely, the sort of contract signing. I've just bought it 2 days ago.
Well, how'd you find it?
Good. Yeah, we've tried a few different things for it.
Did you find it on Google or like?
Well, no. Well, I'm a bit of so I'm a massive fan of AppSumo.
Okay.
So, are you familiar with AppSumo?
Yeah, sure. I know they had one. Yeah.
So they sold it as a lifetime deal on AppSumo about 3 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
So rather than paying a subscription, and I found somebody that was looking to sell their lifetime deal of Signaturely. Yeah. So I think literally on Saturday, was it now Wednesday? Yeah. I bought it, for us to use in the agency for our contracts and terms of engagement. Yeah. So it looks great. Yeah.
Hoping you converted off Signature Maker, but
we've used all sorts, to be fair. But there was another one, name escapes you, but it looks really good actually. It looks really good. Okay, so what did you do exactly there then?
So we basically created initially a strategy around like contract templates and kind of weaved signature, some supporting content for signatures as well. But the contract templates was a similar kind of play to FreshBooks in that, there were contracts for wedding planners, SEO agencies, like various other, professions that we were offering contract templates for. So those pages started to do really well. And then as well on Signature Maker, we made recommendations on that page and also some supporting content as well. And then again, like when you're ranking for, 300,000 type search keywords, I think backlinks are huge. So we built a lot of backlinks as well.
Yeah. I think before you said the backlink piece, I was going to say that the those two examples are quite similar to eCom in that obviously we are, quite often we've got thousands of pages, quite often obviously thousands of SKUs or hundreds of SKUs or tens of thousands of SKUs, and ultimately there's a lot of work you can do on page without touching links to a certain level. It's quite a similar synergy really between those two examples and eCom stores. But I think with eCom stores, you can get to like any SEO project, you get to a bit of a plateau. When you've got let's say 1,000 SKUs and you've gone to town on the categories, the subcategories. You've added however many guides on how to camp and how to set up your camp chairs and how to choose the right camp chair and all the different guides. And we've done maybe a lot of the obvious things around, a lot of unique and using some AI. And, I'm simplifying this for the purpose of the podcast, but what I'm driving at is you've got to, let's say you've already got a fairly solid foundation in SEO. You've not just got your content from your manufacturers, which a lot of people do when they're starting out. They've got these thousands of SKUs and they pull through a CSV, all the descriptions and long descriptions and whatnot. But you've done the work. You've spent a lot of time on a lot of unique content. What would you say to those guys? What's next for them? What sort of things could they be doing that's a bit more advanced, a bit more sort of less around just rewriting stuff and maybe strong?
I think ultimately one of the biggest things that's going to improve your click-through rate if you're an e-com store in the SERPs is your brand, right? Your
Yeah.
brand is so important. And if somebody has seen you before, either on your social media, your email list, other people mentioning you, what have you, they're going to be more likely to click on you. So one of the, brand building activities that we do with our clients is digital PR, right? So I use Ferry Cazzoni from Search Intelligence, and I'm sure there's many others as well, but Ferry does a great job for us in creating kind of viral campaigns for our clients, and that not only gets the brands that we work with more well known because people have seen and heard about us because of the press we've gotten, but it also helps build our overall domain authority, domain rating, whatever you want to call it, and ultimately will help us rank better too.
Yeah. So digital PR, any sort of go-to, I was just looking at one of Ferry's case studies actually earlier. Obviously I follow him, and I think we'll be sharing a pie with Ferry in anytime today, probably, if by the time this airs, because I know he's speaking at the conference as well.
Yeah.
But obviously people talk about data-led campaigns. People talk about, jumping on something that's happening in an industry, a trend, something happened on TikTok, bringing that over. Any sort of things that have worked quite well recently? Any sort of themes?
Well, I think just, looking at what's trending in the news, right? So the example that I always like to say was the one when it's a little bit, past, but when Elon Musk bought Twitter, the surge for Dogecoin search volume spiked up. And we were working with a crypto client at the time, and we released a press release about this and got a bunch of press and really amazing publications for that, right? So that, helps build our brand, get our brand out there more often. And ultimately, for a site that was just starting at that point, really helped boost our DR.
Yeah. We could do with that again. I think Doge is having a little run again, isn't it? I was looking at it this morning. About 20 cents, maybe 19 cents this morning, I think, when I looked, which is good compared with. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was about 10 cents about a month ago. It's doubled, and I think it's more than about 150% in the last 30 days, which is interesting. I know there's a couple of guys I know that'll be in Vietnam that are quite heavy into it. Actually, I'll have to introduce you to them if that's something you're interested in.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've got some Ethereum, and that's the one that I keep an eye on right now.
Yeah.
So it's good now, but I mean, you kind of think going forward, and even the next 10 years, once we start to see these cycles happen, they'll become more predictable and more people will want to get in. So I'm just holding for now. It's not gonna make a material difference to me if I pull out X amount. I can just wait.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. So obviously looking at trends that are happening now that are topical, a lot of demand or a lot of chatter, whether that's finding something on mainstream news or looking at data or looking at I think quite a lot of people seem to look at trends that are happening on TikTok, and looking at those as well. We've just set up a dashboard in our office today, actually pulling the trends from TikTok into the office, so we've got them rolling so that we can get ideas. And if obviously a certain video is trending and got however many million views, there might be an idea there for the digital PR department to be able to sort of incorporate that idea into their digital PR. But I totally agree with you. I think it's surprising how many people, or how many fairly well established 10 million plus turnover plus companies are not doing sort of the digital PR side. I think quite a lot of them seem to maybe struggle to align that to revenue, obviously with SEO and or backlinks and digital PR. I think trying to align, spending maybe 10 grand a month on digital PR, then aligning that to revenue can be sometimes quite challenging. What would you say on that?
Yeah, I think that's often a contention that we run into, but we have to look at, are you where you're at, relative to your competitors in your link profile? And if you're looking on your competitors and they've got, all these high authority links, and you don't, and then they continue to build high authority links and you don't, you kind of have to allocate some budget towards that. Yeah,
I think that's good. I saw that that sort of brings me on nicely to, I think today, your note, or yesterday, about the typical SEO timeline when we look at the start of a project, 2 or 3 months, maybe sorting out how can we getting a strategy in place, sorting out some mess from previous people or the mess that you've inherited or whatever it may be. And then maybe a lot of I'm really summarizing this maybe quite badly, but ultimately there's a point fairly soon on where you need to look at the links, or digital PR. I think it does get left, doesn't it, quite often?
Yeah, a lot of the times, unless you educate your client, which I think is so important. I've been talking about this quite a bit lately. If you don't educate them, they're going to think that the job is done after the strategy and the initial few months of blogs are out, right? But as we know, there's lots of competition in this world, and Google is continuing to favor high authority sites more and more and more. Yeah. And if you're not headed in that direction, you're ultimately going to get, it's a core update's going to come. You're going to reevaluate who's authoritative in your SERP, and you're going to kind of suffer the consequences.
Gonna get hammered. Yeah,
it's very much a proactive thing. And as a consultant or an agency dealing with a client, you've got to work hard to communicate that to them, or else they're just not going to get it.
I think that's a great point, isn't it? I think things are changing. You've got AI, you've got updates, you've got, if you're not communicating just those pieces alone, how are we handling these things? What are we doing with these things? If you're as an e-com store listening to this podcast now, your sort of relationship with your SEO company, your consultant, your advisor, your agency, if you're just getting a monthly report that says we did this, this, and this, and we're going to do this, like, well, hang on a minute, why are we doing this? Well, as you said, Steve, if we're focusing on this because you've got a gap, when we look at the overall link profile, for example, and we compare that to the two leading companies that are doing 100 million a year, you're doing 20 million a year, you're trying to close that gap. And the reason we're trying to close the gap on the link profile is because their camping chair category is ranking at average position of 3, and yours is ranking position 9 average. To close that gap, we've got to build circa 100 links over the next 6 months or whatever it may be, or 6 weeks. You can sort of...
There's a note that I did a while back, was actually a thing from Matt Diggity that I picked up essentially. And if you don't know Matt Diggity, that's the owner of the Chiang Mai SEO conference, really skilled SEO and great sharer of knowledge as well. He talked about like how you can export the backlinks. I use Ahrefs, and you can actually sort all the links by their DR category. So domain rating 90 to 100 is going to be like your absolutely best links, and then 80 to 90, 70 to 80, etc., all the way down the line. And if you essentially count how many of those, quality backlinks you have in each of those buckets, it's going to give you a nice idea. It's not live and die like you will rank or you won't rank if you have a certain number, but it's going to at least give you kind of the playing field that you're dealing with. And you do this for your website and your clients, your website and your competition. And then you can kind of see where the shortfalls are.
Yeah, you can say, right, we need 30 DA60s, we need 40 DA7, those buckets. Yeah. I saw a similar talk in Vietnam last year. Yeah, the Get Links guys, I think, doing, sort of simplifies it, doesn't it? You see that gap. Yeah, it's
a nice visualization, and I think clients appreciate that and kind of understand, where you're coming from when you do that.
So let's change direction a little bit. So 0 volume keywords. What are your thoughts on those?
I'm big on them. So a lot of times, keyword research tools, especially when keywords are emerging, are not going to have the keyword data in them. And, there's just a whole, search volume cannot be, when I say I rank for 300,000 search volume, I'm saying that just because of the scale, but I'm not saying there's exactly 300,000 people searching that per month. It varies a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I think search volume can be very misleading. And when you have keywords that have, a reported search volume that is extremely low, like 0, you oftentimes in Search Console see those keywords having like a lot more impressions, right? So that the impressions is really what I'd much rather go by than search volume. But I like when I find high impression keywords with low search volume, because essentially I know that there's lots of other SEOs looking at that same keyword and probably passing it up because they don't think that there's an opportunity there. So I think that's kind of what you want to be looking for. And some different places that you can find these, 0 search volume keywords for me, like definitely through Google Auto Suggest. People also ask, which is really what we leverage to grow the clicks to 50K a day on FreshBooks. Your own customer data, the types of questions your customers ask you, all those types of things really are great resources for finding those untapped keywords that everybody else is passing up.
So you could literally go to Google now, type in, let's say, your keyword, camping chair. We'll go with that. I know we actually have 2 clients that sell camping products, camping chair, or a variation of that, and you're going to get those people also asked, and very easily with a, whether that's with Ahrefs, SEMrush, or the detailed Chrome extension we quite like. You can just click the detailed Chrome extension. I think you've got to set it up in advance, make sure it's ticked and set up. And then you can go about 4 layers deep and potentially in one click download about 200, maybe more questions straight into a sheet. Then you've got 200 questions that are getting asked about said keyword. Now, there might not be, you run those through, your keyword planner, they might come up as 0, but the reality is if Google's ranking them already, they're not 0, are they? They're
absolutely.
Yeah.
Great point. If Google is pushing people to those answers with auto suggest and people also ask, then that's reason enough for me to think that you're going to continue to push people towards that. And what they're trying to do with people also ask and auto suggest is essentially predict the next question that a person might have after doing that more broad initial search, right? So the more, as the more granular you get, the higher your conversion rate also goes, because if somebody wants a navy blue camping chair with a beer holder, when they find it, they're going to convert, right? Yeah.
Now, so I think you're layering that into what we talked about at the beginning and taking those people also asked with some AI, I say magic, but you can obviously create a lot of very focused content around the people also ask using certain prompts. I think that's a very quick win for e-com stores. Very, very quick win for e-com stores. Wondering what you're going to create for that extra content on your products or your categories, subcategories. Adding 4 or 5, half a dozen FAQs. It's quite an easy win. Yeah.
Very smart strategy. Yeah.
So, right. So obviously we've covered quite a bit of ground. I think. What would you say are some of the most underutilized SEO strategies on e-commerce stores when we think about, we touched on, obviously, we've touched on, link building and obviously very, very lightly, actually, digital PR. We touched on, obviously, using AI and content. But what are some things that when it comes to e-com stores, I think, one thing that is on my mind quite a lot at the moment, that not a lot of e-com store marketers sort of use Google Search Console, for example, I don't think. Have you got any thoughts on that or any other sort of things that sort of get missed?
Yeah, I'll go there for sure. So I love Google Search Console. It's I'm in GSC a lot more than I am in analytics. Obviously, we report on like Looker Studio dashboards that incorporate everything. But when it actually comes down to strategy and strategic decisions, there's just so much information that can be mined from Search Console. Things like using regular expressions to find certain question-based keywords may be one strategy. Another thing that we like to do is try and match the title tag with a high impression keyword for that page. So if we notice our title tag has, camping, let's say like, camping tent or something like that, and our highest impression is actually 2-person camping tent, then we would, use that high impression keyword in the title tag instead of the more generic one that we have, right? Mm-hmm. So you utilizing Google Search Console data is huge. And another thing that I don't think many people are taking advantage of is potentially bringing their GSC and GA data, for that matter, into BigQuery, because you can manipulate the data a lot more. And if your data, since it expires after 16 months in Search Console, you can back up your data forever in BigQuery. So that's something that we do for all of our projects.
And then you can connect, you can do a year-on-year comparison then, can't you? Because obviously 16 months you can't, but when you've done the 16 months, where we get my maths right, 8 months later, you can then do a comparison. Yeah.
Very true. So it's a good time anytime's a good time to get started with it, because like you said, you'll begin to be able to do those types of analysis.
It still baffles me the amount of clients that we speak to, and can you obviously add us to GSC, and they're like, what's that? It's still a thing. It used to be, the tracking wasn't working. That's still a challenge. Don't get me wrong. Especially with GA4 and attribution, but yeah, GSC access and using GSC. I think did I read the other day that they've added some new things recently around. You can see when Google raters have been on your, can't remember what it was exactly.
The Rater Hub, yeah.
So yeah, quite a lot of new things getting added in there. But anything else you would say that is sort of underutilized in e-commerce?
I think probably, I mean, I want to say like it could be done in some cases, but like, making your category pages have some type of like link worthy value, because ultimately like those are the pages that you want to rank, because they're going to contain all your products. So drive links into those pages and then have that link equity filter through to all the products. So creating some type of reason why a person would want to link to your category page, I think is not only going to benefit you just long-term building passive links, but obviously when you're building links and you're doing things like exchanges or even, I want to be careful, but let's say brokering links, you'll have a little bit of an easier time with that.
Yeah, no, that's good. So a couple of personal questions then. Are you a big Lego fan?
Yes, as you can see in my background. I've actually, so one of them is the Lego
Polaroid
shot.
Oh, wow.
And I have an actual Polaroid one shot that the Lego is based off of. So that was kind of cool when I realized that they sold that one. It was like a must-have. Yeah. And then we have a little bit of a city, miniature city.
Yeah. I'll have to get you on a WhatsApp call another time, because we've got a Lego all around the office. One of my guys is obsessed with Lego. So we have a full, the Defender is in there. Now it's a nice size, about this size, the Defender. So a question I got asked on a podcast a couple of months ago was, what keeps you up at night? What would you say keeps you up at night, Steve?
I would say just like, honestly, like ideas for SEO notebook. Whenever I have something that I'm really excited about, it often, like, it's hard to get it out of my mind. The other night, and maybe a different answer to that as well, was like working with certain people. So I was, talking with a good friend of mine, and he was, basically saying that he wasn't exactly the happiest in his current job, and then he was going to come and work for me. So like I couldn't sleep that night because I was so excited. So I think it really comes down to like SEO and like the fun that you can kind of have at work and waking up excited to do work the next day. I'm very fortunate that that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up. In terms of, getting slapped by Google and stuff like that, I think if you've been in SEO long enough, you know what types of decisions are going to lead to getting into that kind of territory, and you're smart enough to avoid that, right? So we push the envelope, we get close, but we don't ever go overboard, right? And I think actually Charles Float had a very good post on LinkedIn a few weeks ago where he talked about like what gets rookie SEOs into trouble. And it's just making too many consecutive unnatural decisions. And I think the longer that you've been in SEO, you kind of understand what those unnatural decisions could be, and you just work to avoid those at all costs. So I don't really have, I'm not worried about, shady tactics or like, Google going after, really like silly kind of strategies and stuff like that. So I'm lucky in that I'm not losing sleep over Google.
No, that's good. That's good. I think that's the thing. You've been doing it, a long time. So I think you know better. But at the same time, you're testing a lot of things as well. So yeah, that's good. Well, thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to seeing you in person any day. So it would be great to catch up again. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Steve, do you have a book that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, 100%. So you did give me a chance to think about this, and I was like, what should I recommend? There's actually a book called In the Plex by Stephen Levy, and it's all about the history of Google. And it's not, 100% about SEO, not even close, but it gives you a really amazing window into how Google thinks as a company, and just some really, really cool case studies. Like real quick, in like 2008, Google did an experiment where they artificially delayed search results by a half a second. And they realized that half a second delay actually caused people to search less and become distracted. So, Google has an obsession with speed. So that's like, one of the main things I took away from that book. And, if I think about what's, with SGE and like the amount of load time that those results take to load, I'm sure it's a big, problem for Google, because they're realizing that people's attention spans are going to wane if they have to wait for the results to generate in this way. So just that book, In the Plex by Stephen Levy, fantastic book, and kind of just gives you like, a 1,000-foot view on how Google operates as a company, and can ultimately help you kind of make decisions as an SEO, I think.
No, fantastic. That's not one I've heard of or been mentioned on the previous 183 episodes of the show. So we'll get that linked up, and I'll get that bought as well. I might even have a listen to that if it's on audio on the 12-hour flight that I've got to look forward to.
It's a 20-hour audiobook, so you have to speed it up.
Oh, okay. There and back, I might get it done.
Yeah. Good one.
I'll put it on the list, I think, for maybe another day. But no, fantastic. Steve, for those that want to find out more about you, more about SEO Notebook, what's the best way to do that?
Just go to my website, SEOnotebook.com, and subscribe.
Yep.
I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you subscribe to SEO Notebook, feel free to reply to an email if you have any questions.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and I'll see you very soon. All right.
Thanks.
Cheers.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.